Hey everybody, it's Daryl in week 3, our finale week in terms of instruction in AMLA 604. Got some fun energy this morning. I actually just finished a video conference call with the assistant principal at Blaine High School where I teach, and started talking about, how can we welcome new teachers? So some good energy happening this morning, thinking about new faces coming into the building in late August. Just wanted to walk people through step by step. Thanks for your patience on getting the welcome video and the agenda. I was very intentional about not pushing content out on Monday. It was dedicated time for you to have time for micro teaching, designing, polishing, getting ready for, and maybe even recording, although I see many of you are on the docket for later in the week, and that's fine. That's A-okay. So I wanted you to have that time on Monday, day 3.1. The next day, some content here from the Miller et al. Text, and also something about digital portfolios. Digital portfolios are not something all that new. It is, I will say, uncommon, and I want to walk people through a few of these slides to kind of give more of a context. You have 2 links that are part of this week's agenda. One is the Student Hub, where I push students to. It actually came as a result of when we had 6 snow days in the same trimester. And if I'm not mistaken, trimesters are like 57 days or something like that. So it ended up being like 10% of the instructional days were at a loss. So I ended up pushing out the idea of having students use some evidence from different courses within Spanish that I had taught them, and ended up making this example that Amelia ended up using for her college entrance documentation. Here's a little bit about the rationale about why. I'm not sure where your district is in terms of the conversation about standards-based grading. So shifting away from points and then looking at proficiency scales from scoring students on rubrics from 0 to 4. Are they distinguished? Are they meeting proficiency? Are they approaching the learning target? It's much how my wife grades in her 3rd grade classroom. And it's just kind of a fun conversation that's happening in secondary. Many folks that are in K-5 have seen this for years. I look at the rationale for digital portfolio as a way to articulate to people who are not in our vocation about their level of proficiency. Because if I just see in a transcript that the student is at an intermediate low, that doesn't mean much to somebody who is on an interview committee who doesn't have the background or the professional development that we have as language teachers. So I encourage kids to put that link, just like I would invite you to do the same for your digital portfolio. But you're going to notice that this project is really written so that students are the ones that are creating their own, to kind of showcase what they can do in their journey, and maybe a K-16 experience. Of course, that's what we hope for as language teachers. It's something that people should be linking. High school students, like Amelia's example that you'll see as a part of their college entrance information. Maybe it's they're applying for corporate life, post Blaine High School, post Brainerd High School, whatever the case may be. Or maybe they just need help articulating to military setting about what they can do. When we think about those can-do statements from ACTFL, these really come in handy. You're going to notice 2 sets of standards that are with it. One are the ACTFL proficiency descriptors that go with the level of proficiency that Amelia has. And then the ISTE.org, ISTE.org. It is those standards that are the student standards. They're called NETS standards. What can kids do when they are integrating technology? So I think about when can you do these. You can think about maybe pushing out the link. Basically, the hub that you're going to see that's linked there is all ready for students to use. It is specific to Google Sites because so many students have access to Google Apps. Not every school district, of course, but many do. But this wouldn't look much different if this were done in Wix or another kind of free web-based, generator, a content management system that students are already doing. Maybe they're already updating their, maybe their church website or their band website that they're involved with. It's also an opportunity for reflection so that kids can see, for example, there are 4 weekly check-ins that Amelia does. It's interesting when students are able to document and also reflect on where have they gone in terms of their proficiency from check-in 1 to check-in 4. And it doesn't need to be, 18 pieces of evidence from every course. It could be 1 to 3 just to start. I would invite you to start that way. Now, I'm sharing these data not to brag, but really to be a talking point for the folks that have the very first question that I frequently get when I share this idea when I do consulting with other districts. And that is, but Daryl, there's not going to be time to be able to do that. And that's just not accurate. You're going to see here, for example, that all students from my courses here, from these data points, that 99% of the students in the district were showcasing mastery in those learning targets in the district on that same presentational writing task at the end of the trimester. It is a common summative assessment. Now, 100% of my students achieved the same thing during the same trimester that Amelia made her digital proficiency folder. This is the same course. These data again show, look, my students can still meet the mark, but still also create an amazing proficiency portfolio. So again, you could think about, well, what are your goals? You could have kids write their goals about what they hope to do with language. They could submit either images or video, maybe pieces of their handwriting, or any kind of work that they're doing in the Google Suite, for example. They could grab pieces from Flip, formerly known as Flipgrid. Students used to be able, and I'm betting this is still a tool, but they used to be able to go to my.flipgrid.com to be able to find out anything that they submitted from Flipgrid, and you can actually embed that video very nicely, and that's actually detailed in that student hub. And I would just kind of sketch out with students, what do you hope that your digital portfolio looks like? So that's a little bit about digital portfolios. I hope that you consider that journey. Follow up with any questions that you might have about that. More text in 3.3 here on Wednesday. Please post your links to 2 spots for micro teaching and lesson 2.0. One, you're going to want to embed those resources into your digital portfolio. That's actually where your peers are going to find your work to make comments on them for the push, praise, feedback. And then also you're going to upload everything to Moodle. So just 2 spots, just to clarify. I've already had some questions about that, and understandably so. Here's what the example might look like. And as far as, what could the digital portfolio, what does it mean to kind of document lesson 2.0 or micro teaching? And here's a little mock-up of what I created the other morning. Basically, these are embedded lesson plans that I would have used. This is not following the same template that you all are using, so don't feel bad. Here's a little bit of a context. I had a question about context. Basically, you want to give somebody kind of the bird's eye view of where are you going with your lesson and how does technology aid that. These are slides that I might use with my students on that student-centered activity. And this is a YouTube tutorial that I've created to walk students through. How would you capture audio? So those are the pieces that you're going to want to have ready so that when people from other groups then make comments on that. Speaking of which, I'll kind of steer you in the direction of, how would you make comments? So for example, if I am Nick, Team 1 has been assigned to comment on Team 2. So I would go to Helen's, I would go pick 2 people. And maybe I noticed that Eddie and Serena both have feedback. So now I'm going to intentionally seek out the work of Jing and Helen. And maybe what I would do is I would make comments on their work. How do you make comments? Well, you've got 2 things. You can go first to just go view their site, check out their documentation, peruse their lesson plan, flip through their slides, and then I would also ask that you check into their recording. So we're going to post the recordings of the work in addition to having access to that documentation, and then begin with the push, praise, feedback. So if I have positive feedback that I want to give to Helen, I'll just click on her name and I'll click on insert, and I'm going to choose comment. And this is when I'm going to offer praise feedback. And I'm also going to choose push feedback. Now there are examples in the agenda of what that might look like, because sometimes Midwesterners struggle. Minnesota nice is a real thing. They sometimes, myself included, struggle with giving appropriate or shy away from giving push feedback. Here's how we might phrase it. Hey, I'm seeing some connections to my own classroom, but can you help me connect some of the dots? Maybe it's connected to what you prioritize pedagogically. I see that you're making outstanding progress here. Could you maybe even squeeze more out of the language sponge by doing this? Or you can kind of help somebody anticipate an argument, so that if somebody is maybe a critic of using learning technologies with language learners, maybe you can kind of help them by anticipating one of those arguments. So here are some examples of what push, professional push feedback, what that might look like, just as a heads up. So it says here to start, again, post your links to the digital portfolio, start uploading those pieces here by Thursday, by the end of the day. Many of you I see are slated for Thursday. That's fine. But then I'm also asking you to make that push praise feedback then at the end of the day, Thursday. So there's a reflection activity. There has been a reflection activity each week. Instead of doing a reflection every day, which was previously done in this course, I really want us to have more time to wrestle with the resources and the documents and the readings. So I've included the work here of Dr. Joan Hughes. Joan Hughes graduated with her PhD in the learning technologies content area at U of M. She's now a professor at the University of Texas, Austin. She is well respected in the field. And in addition to SAMR, her RAT framework is a great way for us to do some self-reflection on technology integration. So what I'm asking you to do is the textbook on pages 24, 25. It describes SAMR in one model, and then I'm adding here the Joan Hughes RAT framework. And if you want, you can do a quick Google search on the RAT framework from Joan Hughes. But I'm asking you to reflect on Lesson 2.0 and your microteach lesson using each of those frameworks. So choosing, I think it says in the flip activity, let me say it right the first time so that I don't mix anyone up, including myself. There is a guest password that's listed on the agenda. It is capitalized sensitive, just as a heads up. It says here, use the SAMR model to reflect on lesson 2.0. Where does it align in that? And then RAT framework for the microteach. So I look forward to hearing about a little bit about where you feel like it fits in terms of categories. And then, thinking about, okay, if I find that my microteach falls in Amplify, I want you to also be thinking about how can you take it to the next level? How could you transform your goals with students with the help of technology? I have a lot of resources here for you to consider for extensions of the class. I'm waiting to hear back on the course evaluation from Dr. Glynn, but I want to invite you to think about how can continue to develop your skills in ed tech if you're finding that this is an area of interest, which I know it's not for everyone, and I don't take that personally. Google includes a lot of training and certifications. I'm certified for level 2, for example. And it's a nice thing to be able to put on your resume, on your digital portfolio, for example. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 20-ish hours of commitment. There is a nominal fee of maybe $20-ish to get that certification. It's about a 3-hour exam, and you need to have your webcam on during it. So there is a sense of integrity with that certification. I have found it really helpful. It helps that we're a Google App institution, and I have found it just very, just uber useful. I included a list of reading suggestions. This is specific to world language teaching and tech integration. And I know that many of my mentors have just also been active readers in scholarship and in their field, and that helps them, again, continue their expertise. So, I guess ones that stand out to me, Deborah Blaze's work, for example. She's a French teacher from Indiana. She's a rock star presenter in Central States. That usually happens in March. It is a 17-state consortium, so it's like 17 chapters of ACFL that are from the Midwest, which gather in the spring. That's another good one. If you're looking for some inspiration, The Courage to Teach from Parker Palmer is a beautiful read. And then I go back to things like Todd Whitaker. What do great teachers do differently? He has updated versions of this, but those are just great reminders, especially near as September approaches, to think about what can you do to just, I think as educators, that's something that comes natural to us, is the idea of continuous improvement. Here's a list of EdTech journals that are specific to learning technologies for world languages. Here are some EdTech books that you might want to consider. There are 2 groups, Midwest and International, on language teaching with technology. There's a Facebook group from IALT, which is a really well-respected international organization on language teaching with technology. And then I guess I go back to this point about what Brian had made earlier, one of the first weeks, is how can I get involved? Now, MCTLC, for the folks that are close to Minnesota, MCTLC runs in early November. It looks like the 4th and 5th. I happen to be giving a workshop and a session on digital portfolios. I would invite folks that are close to Minneapolis to be able to do that. I believe it's at the Plymouth Crown Plaza again, which is a great central location and a great place to stay if you're driving in from quite a ways. There are 17 of those Minnesota chapters that get together in spring. It is called the Central States Conference on Teaching of Foreign Languages. Columbus is 2023, and then it's coming to Minneapolis. I was surprised to find out yesterday, in 2024. I've only been to ACFL one time. It was worth it. It was in Tennessee. I think Memphis, but no, it was actually in Nashville. So anyway, it's not one that I get to, but Chicago is close for me for ACFL. I would consider for next year. I shouldn't say next year, but this coming year, 2022, ACFL happens in November usually. And then in 2023, if you're, thinking about Philadelphia to head there, it is, for me, it's probably like, I'll probably go maybe 2 or 3 times in my lifetime to ACFL, but I really find it useful. It was overwhelming, like Meredith shared in the interview that we had with her. But again, these are the things that help keep us sharp, and they challenge our practice, whether it's tech integration or otherwise. I will follow up with folks closer to the end of the week. I'm going to try to crank out as much assessment as I can as stuff comes in. Reach out if you're feeling stuck. I still have about 3 people that I need to officially check in with. And I'm hoping that we can make that connection early to clarify along the way. But I'll send out an update closer to the end of the week. Good luck this week. I know that this is going to be challenging because this is kind of the high season for this tight course to begin with in 3 weeks. And this really is kind of the biggest week as these deadlines approach. Don't hesitate to reach out by email, phone, or text. Take care, everybody.